Hi, this is Jojo with the Hookup Baits podcast, and today we have a very special guest. We have Ty Wiese, and we're going to get to know Ty. So why don't we start?
I'm here too.
And Chad Gerlich, excuse me, yes. So we're going to get to know Ty this morning, and then the second half we're going to be lucky enough to have Ty and your son Luke. So let's start by telling the listeners, where did you grow up?
I'm a Navy brat. So my dad's a Navy submariner, so I kind of followed him around. But moved to Satellite Beach, Florida, and that's on the Space Coast when I was just in third grade. So I stayed there until I graduated high school. And so Satellite Beach, Florida, Space Coast, space shuttles, all that
And what
stuff.
kind of hobbies did you do as a kid?
Well, baseball, basketball, and fishing and surfing. Well, surfing was a huge passion of mine. But yeah, so I did kind of, those were my four real big sports growing up in Florida. I mean, Florida's hot all year round. So, if the surf's flat, you go fishing, and baseball is seasonal and basketball was seasonal.
And is that something you just picked up fishing, or did your dad or a family member?
No, it's funny. My dad never fished. Matter of fact, first time he ever caught a fish is when he took me fishing, and I had, I was on like one of those little bridges on one of the rivers over there, Indian River, and I had two poles out, and I think I was like in sixth grade, and I had a fish on one pole, so I'm like reeling in, hey Dad, look at me, and all of a sudden the other pole bends over, and I'm like, Dad, you have to get the other fish pole. He's like, I don't know how to do this, but and he reeled it in. It was like a whiting, I think was what they called it, and I was like more excited than he was. He was like, okay, here you go. Like that
It was just
awesome.
something that didn't excite him.
He grew up in Hawaii. It was never really a big thing for him, but for me, I thought it was pretty rad. Fishing has always been something that I enjoyed, especially saltwater fishing, because you never know when you're going to get on the other line. So, I mean, in Florida, you got those puffer fish that like destroy everything, and then you've got trout and some other different fish down there.
There's a ton of species over there.
Yeah.
And it's easy.
I tell you, I have to be honest with you. I really thought I was a really good fisherman. I was like, I always catch fish all the time. You just go to the bait store, buy some shrimp, toss a shrimp on a hook, throw it out, and
You catch fish.
you catch fish. And you always think you're really good at it. You bring it home to Mom. She takes it and, cooks it up for you, and then you're having fish with your friends. I always thought that was just the way it is. Yeah.
But then you came to California.
Dude, Southern California is way different.
You got humbled a little bit.
I came here. I was like, I know how to fish. My boys are, I was around 2016. I'm going to finish up my career. I'm like, I finally got my boys old enough. I'm going to get them excited about fishing like I was.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take them fishing, and this is going to be great. And I'd take them fishing, and we would get skunked all the time. Like, it was a joke. He'd be like, hey, Dad, how many fish did you catch this time? Zero. The freshwater fish were, the reservoirs here are clear, so the fish probably just see what I have and be like, no. And I didn't grow up with any of the jig fishing or artificial lures. So
And rainbow trout's not going to eat a shrimp.
it was awful. It was like the running family joke. Be like, oh, Dad's taking us fishing, which means we're not catching.
We're going for a picnic.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal for anybody who've done Southern California fishing. If you think you know how to fish it here, you really don't. Yeah. So
And that's something I say. If you grow up, if you can catch fish consistently in California, Southern California, you can catch fish anywhere.
Well, I have since gone back. So we went back, I think, summer 2018, 2019. I can't remember what it was. And so we had to hook up bait lures. This is after we've already got engaged with hookups and understand how to use them. And we flew out to visit my mom. And so I think we had the eighths. It was an 1/8 ounce. I just kind of packed some in the suitcase a little bit. So we went to Walmart, grabbed a couple cheap poles. We're like, all right, we gotta go see if we could catch some fish here just for fun.
Yeah.
As my mom's walking her dog, at like this little itty bitty, Indian River Park or whatever, and there's like a little pier there. And so Luke and I go out there, and Luke's like 12, I think, at the time. We come walking out the end of the pier. We're like, hey, man, how's it going? This old cranky guy's like, it's going great. We're not catching anything. Fish aren't biting today. So, we're like, oh. So we walk back, grab the little Walmart fishing poles. Luke, we hook on a couple little hookup baits on there. And as Luke is walking up to the thing, he decides to drop it in the water. He's like, I bet there's some fish here. And I kind of let him do whatever he wants. He's figuring it out. and he's just kind of bringing it along the bottom. He catches a flounder right off the bat. just, hey, look what I caught, guys! Like he's like
as he's walking out the pier.
As he's walking out the pier. So that was funny. So we're like, oh, hey, look, there's fish here. And then he's just this grumpy old dude. So we just kind of walked out to the end of the fish pier, and there's 2 Walmart fishing poles, $1, like $10 with the reel, whatever. I don't even think we changed the line. It had the mono line on
the crappy line.
Yeah. How you cast it out, you like almost get it out far enough, and first cast right in front of the guy. Both Luke and I both hook up.
Wow.
Yeah, speckled, those are smaller speckled trout. Yeah. And he was like, well, he's like, well, I didn't really like the idea. So we like unhooked him. That was pretty cool. Threw it out again, caught more. Then we caught again. And then we brought Micah out and he caught one.
Oh, gosh.
And then so the guy got so mad he got left.
I'm leaving.
He's like, I'm done. Stupid. He ended up meeting us up in the pier after, and he's like, what are you guys using? Like, there's like a chewed up, and it was one of the older glow greens.
Okay.
One of the older ones, and I just kind of like, well, you can, here's the website. We're like, oh, we did good today.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So Southern California, if you don't know how to fish it, like we didn't, we had to learn real quick. So that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh, all right.
So tell us a little bit about your family.
So I'm married. Been married over 30 years to my wife Stephanie. So, that's pretty cool, marrying your first love. And we have 4 kids together, 2 daughters, 2 sons. Mm-hmm. Both my daughters are older now. My oldest is married 2 years now. She lives in Florida. And my second oldest daughter is a senior in college this year, University of Arizona.
Go
Cats.
Go Wildcats, yeah.
And so I have Luke, right, who's 14, getting ready to turn 15, and Micah, who is 12. Yeah. So, and they're growing. They're going to be bigger than me, I think, at some point. I don't want to tell them that really, but they're going to be bigger than me.
Yeah. And Luke's catching up pretty quick.
He's 6'2". He's 14. He's insane.
Well, how tall are you?
I'm 6'5", and a little bit. Like in the morning, I'm 6'5" and a half.
You don't need the little bit.
6'5"
is enough. 6'5" is good.
I always tell people I just hit my head a lot. You're like, oh, there's Ty, and he hits his head.
Yeah, I watched you. I was following you when you came through the door. I was kind of like, oh. He's gonna hit his head. Like you missed it by like that much.
It's comedy. It's comedy for other people. Other people are like, "Oh, watch this guy." And, on the Navy ships, I hit my head a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
And I never had to worry about that.
Yeah. See, you're. Yeah, I'm like a. Yeah. Thank God you're a really good fisherman.
You have had an amazing career in the military. Kind of touch base on why you enrolled and kind of a spotlight of your career.
For me, okay, so I graduated high school early. So my parents started me in school early. So I graduated high school and I was just barely 17. So that was weird. And, and I couldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go get a full-time job and be super grown up because everyone's like, you're 17. You don't get full bennies and all this other stuff, right? So, and my parents are like, look, if you're going to stay here in the house after you graduate high school, if you're going to school, we won't charge you rent. And I'm like, okay, so community college, and I went to a private high school where 99% of the people that graduated went to a 4-year school. So, I'm working 2 jobs, surfing, because I couldn't get a full-time job and I didn't want to go to a 4-year university. My father was a submariner. He was a 21-year submariner, and he knew how to do everything. Fix the pool pump, fix this, fix that, electronics, mechanics. And he always had these like cool pictures up on the wall, like submarines and missiles. He was a submarine missile technician, right? So, ballistic missile, nuclear submarines, and he worked on the system back when it was just starting out in the 60s. And I thought, and he talks to his Navy buddies, and it's always like this super rad thing. And he was kind of a really... he was kind of a strict dad until he retired. Then he became cool. I don't know what happened. So I kind of like that idea that he knew how to do everything. And so, I don't know, one day I was driving around trying to find jobs just because I wanted to feel like I was successful and doing something. And then I feel like the whole steering wheel went, you're going this way. And I went right into the Navy recruiter. And I walk in, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I'm Ty, graduated, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, well, take this test. And so I took the ASVAB test, and I scored really high on it. And he's like, okay, well, you can do whatever you want in the Navy. I suggest you go nuke power, or you do this. And I was like, well, I just want to be a submariner. It's like, like, oh, okay. Well, I'm 17. So you had to like get parents' permission to sign. So the recruiter doesn't, by the way, didn't ask me about my parents. I didn't think it was important, right? So he comes over to my parents' house and my dad's there. That was an interesting conversation. Hey, Dad, I want to join the Navy. Oh, okay, great. Mom, falls apart, starts crying. She's like, wait a minute, what are you? Then my little boy is not ready to join the military. I didn't even know how to wash clothes yet,
Yeah.
So the recruiter comes over and he has a conversation about how his son joined the Navy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I just want to be a submariner like my father. And he looks at my dad and he goes, so my dad tells him that he was in the Navy. And oh, by the way, he was a detailer that used to be in charge of a lot of the recruiting and stuff. So he was like, you should have told me your dad was in the Navy. So, long story short, joined the Navy, became a submariner, followed my father's footsteps as a missile tech. I did that for 10 years. I was very successful. And when I was, as a submariner, I was on a ballistic missile submarine, and we would do blue and gold cruise. So I was 3 months in, 3 months out, 3 months in, 3 months out. So, did 5 years on a submarine underway. 2.5 years of that were literally underwater.
Wow.
And when you're a young man,
That
you're
is
like,
crazy.
when you're a young man, you're like, hey, this is great.
So you spent 2 years of your life
2.5 years underwater.
in the ocean.
Yeah, it was 9 patrols.
That's wild to
But
think
you're
about.
kind of doing strategic deterrence, like this cool mission that nobody knows about. You leave and it's like this awesome, like, I don't know, I didn't know any better. I was a young man. So
He didn't really understand how different and how cool that is that you get to say that now.
Well, think of my worldview as a surfer, little dude in Satellite Beach to joining the Navy and being on a submarine just like my dad. I thought it was pretty cool. And then I went to shore duty to be an instructor, and I feel like, oh, hey, this is actually working really well. I love teaching. I love getting in front of people.
You're
I love
so good
seeing
at
this piece of this of kind of seeing some fruit of, the guys I'm teaching are come back and be like, hey, I'm doing really well. Like, I kind of really like that. I like the counseling and the mentoring piece of it. So I was like, hey, I would like to go to school. And my boss at the time, he was like, yeah, dude, we're teaching too much. You have to school. If you want to go to school, you have to do it on the weekends. So I was like, okay. So I found a program that I was able to go to school nights and weekends. So I finished my 4-year degree in 2 years.
Wow.
While I was being an instructor in the Navy. And as soon so I got my 4-year degree, and then I was like, I want to be an officer. This would be so cool. And so I applied to be an officer. They picked me up in 3 days, called me at home, said, hey, welcome. The surface warfare community would love to bring you in. And I didn't really understand what that was. I was like, well, that must be easier than a submariner because, submarines are the top tier. You have to be super, awesome to be a part of as a submariner. So I thought, well, I could do this hands down. And I went to officer candidate school in Pensacola, and the Marines just beat the bejesus out of you. I was like, I trained to be a Marine for 10 weeks straight, and then the last 2 weeks they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're an officer. So so one of the things the Marines taught me were not to be afraid to make a decision, which I think actually came in quite handy later on. They put so much stress on you to be able to say stress, 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 and you have to learn how to ignore it to be able to make a decision. Yeah. And I respect that. That was a difficult process. They're like, hey, you're a nasty prior. We don't want you here. I'm like, I want to be here. And became an officer and did 20 years, just under 20 years as an officer. So I did 29 years total between a enlisted submariner, and a surface warfare officer. So I got to drive ships all over the world. Right after I got commissioned, 9/11 happened, which was weird. So all of a sudden, I'm like, packing the bags, kissing the wife, and going away for 3 back-to-back deployments. My wife was like, hey, I did not sign up to be a single mom. This is not what I expected.
I can see that being
so that was difficult. It really was, managing all that. So which is one of the reasons why when we came here to Southern California, and I was taking my last job here in 2016, I was like, I have got to, because my daughters were already old enough. They're in high school. They're like, Dad's not the primary, kind of thing anymore. Mm-hmm. I have these 2 younger boys, and thank goodness God blessed me with having boys later on in life where I got to be a little bit more mature and be able to kind of reach into their lives a little bit. So I thought, I really love fishing. Got really good at it. And then I thought, oh, well, I'm going to teach my kids how to fish. And so we started doing this whole fishing thing. And I was skunking all over the place. And it was like this big joke. Daddy's taking us fishing, which means we're not catching anything. Oh. Matter of fact, that's how I met into Hookup Baits was I was fishing at Lake Dixon. Yeah, Lake Dixon was like
Dixon
November
Lake.
of 2016. And, they just did the opener. They stocked it, right? So everybody left of me and everybody to the right of me is catching fish. Not this guy, right? And I'm doing whatever I can. I've got worms. I've got, whatever the fancy bait at the time was. And my boys were really interested in, like, we were near the bass hole. I don't remember that. There's this area, this cove or whatever. Mm-hmm. So my boys are, interested in playing with some of the other boys there because we're not catching fish. so I see Tim. So Tim's there.
Tim Gardner.
Yeah, so Tim's there. Mm-hmm. And I ended up kind of working my way next to Tim. And we're kind of like, the boys were kind of rowdy, not my boys. Mm-hmm. And he noticed that my boys were nice. Yeah. They were like, hey, and he kind of mentioned, he was like, hey, you know what, I've been watching your boys. They're very nice. They're very well behaved. It's nice to see that. Like it was kind of cool. He kind of broke the silence, so to speak, the bro silence. It just kind of
don't flatter yourself. Tim will talk to anybody.
Oh. Well, I didn't know that at the time. I thought, well, this guy's really nice. I was like, this is great. But he ended up, and so he's just standing there. He's jigging. Oh, caught another fish, and I'm like 0 for 0 everything. So I'm watching how he's bringing things in. And he's like, oh, you just jig a little bit. I'm thinking, I don't even know what a jig is. I thought jig, like, I didn't know that was an actual form. Like, I had no clue. And so he starts telling me about you. He's like, oh, well, these little hookup baits, these little tube baits things rock, And I ran into a guy, his name's Chad. He owns it. And I watched him one day. He's in a boat over here. And I think it was at Lake Dixon.
Is that Dixon?
And you were just like bringing in fish after fish after fish. And he's like, what am I doing wrong? I know how to fish. So I guess he went and talked to you.
He did the same thing. Yeah.
So he kind of gave me this little I kind of met this guy.
Just passing it down the line.
Yeah. And so then I'm like, oh, that's great. And then he hands me your card. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, okay, all right. It's kind of cool. Yeah. So that was November, right? So I went out, looked up, okay, this guy, Chad, he's legit. Okay, so he's got a little bit of a social media presence. And he sells these baits. And by the way, you have to drive to Timbuktu to find them. Right? So
yeah,
they weren't at every store
that
yet.
was before we were in every store around.
Yeah.
So had the big online store and everything.
So I would drive to a couple of these stores that had them, and I would buy whatever they had left. Mm-hmm. I didn't know the sizes and all that stuff, really. And then Father's Day comes up. Mm-hmm. Dad, what do you want to do for Father's Day? I want to go fishing. So we drive up to Lake Wolford. They just docked. And I hear all these great things about Lake Wolford. I figured I got hookup baits now. Mm-hmm. I watched this dude, Tim, teach me a little bit. He didn't really teach me. He just sounded like, hey, this is what you do. And so I go up to Lake Wolford. I'm thinking, the whole drive up there, I'm so excited. This is going to be great. They're going to be, that can't make fun of me. My daughters were like, Dad, did you go fishing today? Ha, ha, ha. I thought for sure that I'd do well. And I didn't catch anything. I didn't catch,
again.
I didn't even catch a bird chasing it. I didn't know what I was doing, And we were finding other people's old baits. Like, Dad, do you want to use this? I'm like, I don't. So anyway, so I started to kind of figure out, well, maybe these are better saltwater because I would see you would have a little clips here and there.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring watching you catch all these fish, and when I didn't catch any fish, and I wanted to get into this really bad. So I was like, okay, so I started talking about this jig fishing and how to change my perspective, and if I'm going to learn to do this. So I kind of become an internal drive. I really wanted to figure this out.
Yeah.
So December timeframe. We go to the Shelter Island Pier. We're like, okay, Shelter Island Pier. Got some of these baits. Mm-hmm. Cast it out. You're really, really fast. We caught a couple mackerel. We thought we were the...
Yeah.
And if you haven't caught mackerel on an ultralight pole...
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a lot of fun, man. It fights like every inch of it's like whatever, but it was great. So I started to feel a little bit more,
Hey, I'm catching fish.
So I brought my boys with me. Because I did it early in the morning before I went to work, just to figure it out. Yeah. So once I started catching a few, I'm like, okay, so I brought my boys on a weekend. They're catching in, and we were doing a couple of different jigs at the same time, trying to figure out, right? And so we started catching a little bit of mackerel. We thought, all right, this is fun. And then a buddy of mine was like, oh, so that was a Shelter Island Pier, which is free.
Yeah.
And then there's a Southern Pier, I can't remember, around the back, behind the Navy base, south.
Where the restaurants are there, right?
No, it's in the back bay.
Oh, the Pepper Park.
Yeah, Pepper Park, that's right.
Yeah.
So we go there. And we're like, all right, we're kind of rolling in. And there's a little pier there. We fish, and we were catching little fish. Like, I think it was mackerel or whatever. And we just thought we were like the cat's meow. Like, we just thought this is so much fun. We're taking photos. And we run into this guy named Dave Chavez.
Oh.
So Dave Chavez is there, and he's using hookup baits. We're like, hey. So we're like, you're not the only one. Like, you're somebody. And he kind of saw that. And he was watching, which was interesting. He was watching how I was working with my boys. And I guess he thought I was a friendly guy, or my boys were really friendly because my boys were like, "Hey, how's it going? You use hookup baits? That's so fun." And Dave hands me his card, which is he was the vice president of San Diego Anglers at the time. He's like, "Dude, you got to come out to these meetings. There are lots of people there." And he goes, "By the way, the owner of Hookup Baits goes." I was like, "Oh, I'll check it out." I was like, totally cool. Whatever.
You get in the car, you're like,
yes. Didn't want to overdo it, but sure enough, Chad. So I was like, okay, I figured this out. So I went on your social media, like, hey, how's it going, guys? Blah blah blah. I'm gonna be at San Diego Anglers, and I'm gonna be doing a forum about how you fish hookup baits. So I was like, marked on the calendar, and I went. So I went to the first San Diego Anglers meeting. Because Dave invited me, so I knew it was cool.
Yeah.
And you were going to give this presentation about hookup baits. So that's why I went. And I was
There's
such a
one
nerd.
that I was doing
And
a
hold
seminar.
that thought, because we're going to take a quick break, because this is way, way too exciting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having fun.
I know. We're going to come right back, because I want to hear the impression that you had at the San Diego Anglers. So we'll be right back with the Hookup Baits podcast. Thanks.
Right on.
Hi, this is Jojo with the Hookup Baits podcast, and we are going to pick up with Ty. And I believe you have now gotten the invitation to the San Diego Anglers meeting. Chad's speaking. Now what happens?
So, so I make all these like special plans. I'm like, okay. I'm telling my wife, hey, I'm going to go to this San Diego Anglers meeting, and I'm going to learn about this and that. She's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to come? She's like, no, that's your thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's totally your thing. And I didn't want to bring the boys because I didn't know what type of group was going to be there. I had no idea. It was like this super awesome family fishing club.
It was a scout out
thing.
trip.
Yeah.
Scouting it out.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to figure this Chad guy out. I had no idea. So I go, and I totally nerded out. I brought a notepad, like with pen and paper.
I love when people do that.
And so I sat in the back of the room. Everyone's very friendly, like, how's it going? I'm like, oh, hi, Dave sent me. I'm like looking up his name because I couldn't remember because I forgot the card, of course. But Dave was there. He greeted me. He's like, hey, come on in. It was at the Bahia. It was really cool. And they're like, hey, oh, you're active duty Navy. I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, well, then you could come right in. And they made me feel very special. So I was like, okay, this is working out really well. And they served cake, which I was like, all right, we had cake. We had to sit in the back of the room, and I was totally focused on you. And I wanted to learn so badly how to catch fish in Southern California because I was just getting blanked all the time, and I was embarrassed, and I wanted to be a total awesome dad, So, I was, you know what I mean, like catching some dinks off the pier. I was ready to move on from that.
Yeah. Ready
so you're up there, and so it's funny. Chad's got this like, hey, this is who I am. This is Hookup Baits. This is why Hookup Baits is different. This is how you fish them. And I was like locked in, and I'm literally writing things down like, okay, this is the presentation. This is how when you come down and structure. This is what you look for. This is the reel setup. And I was writing all the reel setups, and I remember writing down. You're like, yeah, well, we don't use mono. We do this and we do that and braid to, and do RP knot. I was like, I didn't know any of that. I was like, that's a game changer. Like, I didn't understand the presentation and understanding that the difference between fluorocarbon and mono and why you used certain weights and why it's different here. You know what I mean? And then you talked about different colors and how you use them and why. So it was like a total mind blower for me. I was like, oh, I've been doing it all wrong the whole time. So So I met you. I walked up to him, I met you. I said, hi, how's it going? I shook my hand with you. Hi, I'm Ty. I'm blah, blah, blah.
And you remember telling you, Tim introduced me into the baits.
That's right.
And stuff
That's
like
right.
that.
I told you about Tim, and you were like, oh, that's very nice. And I was like, I'm kind of fan-guying here now. That's probably weird. So I didn't want to overdo it. I was like, this is the guy.
That was really odd
fisherman.
too. That was
like
professional
fisherman.
Two or 3 years in, I think, back then.
Well, I went. Look, I touched every one of your rods. I'm like, okay, it's rods, and this is the reel, and because I was like, okay, I need to set it up differently. I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
What? 6-foot-long ultralight poles don't work? That's the best Walmart could buy. What are you talking about?
I gotta buy my poles not from Walmart. What?
Hey, I've caught a lot of good fish off of Walmart. No joke, right there.
They changed work. They still work.
I changed. They didn't last that long, but they worked. Yeah,
exactly.
They're like, why does it not work the second time I went out fishing in saltwater? Well, corroded. So after that, we met you. San Diego Anglers was a really good experience. I was like totally jazzed. I'm like, I got all this information. So I went up the next day and I went and got fluorocarbon and I researched how to do different knots, and I changed out the poles and then spent a ton of money. Wife does not know how much money I spent, but I spent a lot of money on different types of hookup baits because I was laser focused on making sure that I knew how to fish these baits because it was a new way to fish in my mind, and I wanted to have something to share with my kids that I knew how to fish, they knew how to fish, and I was hoping they'd get the same stoke, right? So sure enough, in my uniform, it's like raining the next day, and I like leave work early. And it was raining, whatever. And I went to one of the marinas. I don't think you're supposed to fish, whatever. It was low tide, so I kind of like walked on the rocks in between the boats, and I was trying out this out. I kept trying, and then I would like didn't get the casting right because the wind would blow and it'd go on a boat. Like, God, I lost that. Darn it, you know. And here I am. I'm in a uniform, right? And I'm sure people saw me and they're like, "What is this guy doing?" But I was very determined and I didn't care. So, and sure enough, I caught my first spotted bay bass, and it was a legal 14-inch spotted bay bass. And I was so incredibly happy because I figured at that point, because I was listening and remembering and going through the notes of how to do it. It's very methodical, right?
And now it's working.
And well, now it's working. And so then I thought, okay, so the next weekend I take my boys out. And so we go to MCRD, the recruiting district over there. They have like little rental boats, right? You know, little tent, don't go out of the bay. I'm like, go right to the edge of the bay, you know. And so it was like mid-January 2017, and we drove to the bait barge because I remember the video. You and Tim were just catching fish, like you were sneezing and catching fish. I was like, all right, at some point we're going to be pretty lucky. And we were there for a little bit trying to figure it out because the sea lions are barking at us, and I had this little like motor, so the wind's starting to blow, right? So I'm blowing all over the place, and we're trying to like hold on to because you're not allowed to hold on to the. So
you can though.
So we were total newbies, right? Here I am, a surface wharf officer. I'm a commander, and I'm just like getting thrown all over the place
on this little boat.
Like, it's so embarrassing.
I could drive a battleship, but I can't drive this boat.
It's a little boat. So sure enough, so Luke takes this 1/4 ounce hookup bait red one, and he had it ready to go, and he opens up the bail and he just drops it near the thing, and I remember he just let it go all the way down, and I'm in the back trying to maintain position. I'm like, you just fish, buddy. We got this. And he's got the full, life vest on with the, all the protection and jackets and this and that. And he goes, oh, I got one. And he started reeling it in, and it was an ultralight. It was a really kind of like a light. So the pole was bent all the way over, and he's like, Dad, I got a big one. I'm like, all right, buddy, and he starts kind of doing this number. I'm like, all right, I didn't want him to break it off. But I got that new fluorocarbon, the braid fluorocarbon. So it was kind of,
you're good to go.
So I was like, all right, steady reel. So I'm kind of like bracing his arms almost, and he's reeling it in. And I'll never forget the look on his face because his eyes were big, and he's like, I'm doing it. This is so fun. And it's fighting, and he brings this sculpin up. It's a 14-inch sculpin.
Yeah, a big sculpin.
Yeah, it was a big sculpin. I had no idea what it was. We had no idea what it was.
That was obvious. The next thing I get is a picture. Luke caught his first fish, and he's holding the sculpin like this in his hands. And I opened up a picture. I'm like, ooh, wow, that kid is brave.
We really had no idea what we were doing, Jojo. We had no idea what we were doing. Like, all I knew is we caught a big fish. It was pretty, had some spikes on it, so don't touch the spikes. And Luke didn't care. He was like, please take this photo. I want to show Mom. Like, he was so excited. And it was just sculpin. And I was like, and I'm trying on my phone to try to look up what a sculpin. I didn't know what it was, but.
Yeah. Well, you got it from me. I'm like,
yeah,
it's nice fish, but don't hold him like that. They're poisonous, and it's gonna hurt if he gets poked.
You know what though? Right after that, it was over. We were all in. Mm. So 2-3 times a week.
Did it.
Yeah, well, it was just a stoke of catching a fish. Yeah,
well,
yeah,
we took that home and ate it. Well,
it.
I mean, you did the homework.
Yeah.
You went out and got the right equipment. Mm-hmm. And now Dad is a hero.
Oh, I was a rock star.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to brag to all my daughters, too. I'm like, see, caught a fish. And you know what they said? They said, no. Luke caught a fish. Oh, I was like, okay. I see where this is going. Crowd. Yeah, it was a tough crowd. But it was fun banter,
yeah.
you know.
And now they're getting excited.
So Micah was next in the loop, man. So we brought him out with us. And Micah was really young at the time. And he just wanted to eat and hang out with the boys. And then he would, once we start catching fish, then he would fish and he'd catch a fish. So his percentage was really high. Like anytime Micah puts a pole in the water, he's catching fish. Mm-hmm. I was like, what are you, a savant? Like, what's going on? So we just kept doing it and kept doing it. And then we started getting different spots. Oh, the marina here, or this spot here, or this spot here. And then we were getting excited catching hey, we caught 6 fish today. We were like, this is so fun. You know what I mean? And my wife is so fun. She was very supportive about it. She's like, make sure you wear sunscreen because we come back sunburned. Right? You know? So, and then I started getting kind of more bold. I'm like, oh, we need to get a boat. Yeah. Because we need to have access. If we have access, we'll catch more fish.
Yeah, we're going to catch fish like Chad if we have a boat.
This is so great. Oh, yeah. Well, we may or may not have said that. I don't remember. So we bought an inexpensive chaparral, right? Kind of like a converted chaparral with a big V8 engine inboard in it. We had no idea what we were doing. Uh-huh. And we fished our butts off. And what was really cool is, so we fished Hookup Baits exclusively because it worked for us, and there was no point in filling up our tackle box with things that we didn't know how to use, mm-hmm. right? So,
and that was kind of advantage of first, you're just getting into it and finding hookup baits first. Everybody buys every iron and swim bait and this and that, and then now they got all this stuff, and then they find hookup baits, and they're like, I have this whole tackle box of stuff I'm never going to touch again. You know what I mean? Yeah. I hear that happen over and over and over again. So so you kind of lucked out in a way.
Yeah. Well,
saved you a little bit of money.
A little bit. I mean, and I have friends of mine, too. They're like, oh, you fish here. I've got some gear for you. I've got some lures and stuff that work. And they just have collected dust. I didn't want to be rude and get rid of them or sell them. You know what I mean? So they're still sitting in my wife's like, dude, you have like a dungeon of fishing stuff. Like, at what point are you going to thin this out? Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, I don't know. Just not going to do it right now. But we fished nonstop. And then what happened is we're part of a homeschooling group, right? Christian family school, where we homeschool. And so a lot of those kids, so Luke's like, dude, look at all the fish we caught. Mm-hmm. And they're like, whoa, can you take me fishing? I've never been fishing before. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, oh, this is a great opportunity. So the parents are like, oh, you're a Navy surface warfare officer. You're safe. And I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, but I can't drive a skiff. So.
Well, at this point, I had a boat. But yeah, so we started. Chad. So we started taking these kids out fishing. And so not only I got to see, remember Luke's first stoke and then Micah's first stoke. Now I'm getting these kids that are just, they're catching their first fish, and they're like big sand bass that are fighting at, 60 feet. And they're like, this is amazing. And then I'm taking their dads out, and they're like, they've never caught this many fish before, too. So Luke and I became, and Micah, too, we're like these rock star fishermen. Yeah. And it's not like we really are that great of a fisherman. Uh-huh. All we did was follow the rules, which is this is the gear you use, this is what you look for, and then you put the gear that you have, which is the hookup baits, and the layout of the different sizes and stuff, because those are important. And you just find the places to basically because the boat gave you access, and then we're catching all these fish. Everyone's like, "This is amazing! You should run your own charters." I'm like, it was.
I'm just going where Chad tells me to go and put the hookup bait down.
It was so incredibly fun, and not only do I get to take the boys out fishing and have their stoke, which is in stories, and we got to eat good food, right? We always bring snacks, snacks that mom wouldn't buy, right? so we were just having a blast. So I was thinking, we're building memories, we're sharing memories, and this is what we were talking about. Is the hookup baits thing is it allows us to have an opportunity to create memories and to build memories, and those memories build relationships, and then you're building relationships, and now you're building this community, and it's just been an absolute joy. It really has. And I take some older fishermen with me too. They're like, "Oh my God, you caught a sheep's head on a jig? No, that ain't happening." And I'm like, "No, really, look, here's the photo. Here's a picture of Luke with this big sheep's head." He's like, "Oh, you that must have been a byproduct catch, I'm like, no, you should come with me. And I would take them fishing with me, and I was like, "You use your lures, and I'll use mine. And then when you're ready, I have a pull for you with this."
Yeah.
And it didn't take but a couple casts as I'm catching 2, 3 to their 1 maybe.
Yeah.
And then usually the one I'm catching is more quality. And that just speaks to what you guys do here, is just you build memories, right? And you build quality baits, but it's really building memories. And and a lot of the people that I take out, these older fishermen, they're all in. They're like, they end up going buying hookup baits. Like, here's a card,
awesome.
A little discount, a little hookup bait ambassador. Yeah. But no, it's been great. So so Luke and Micah both have benefited, just by being able to take their friends out, and you know what I mean, and then come home, and then we get to cook this fish that we caught together.
Yeah.
And that was when I started this out, and to research about, and it was really Tim's the one who said, "Hey dude, you should probably check this out." That has really developed into something that's been a real positive to our family. It really has.
And now you're an ambassador and tournament angler, and
it's fun.
all kinds of stuff.
It's fun.
So I remember the first hookup baits tournament you and your boys did. And you guys kicked butt.
We were. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys had that. That was a blast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was that? 2019? No, 2018.
2018.
So, October 2018. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just got the new thresher boat, so we were like, "Oh, we got a new thresher boat. We'll figure this out." And I didn't even put the plug in. I was so excited. So I'm back in the boat in the water, and all of a sudden I see this jet of water coming out the back. I'm like, "What? Oh, I didn't put the plug in." I was so excited. And I'm like, "I hope nobody saw." The standard rookie boat mistakes, you make, and that was a blast. We went out to the pipe, and Luke was like, "All right," and Luke broke his arm. Mm-hmm. He broke his left. Yeah, he broke his arm. And he's like, "I still want to fish a tournament. I still want to be all in." And I'm like, "Dude, all right. Well, all right. Let's figure this out." So we had a plan, and so we went and found the pipe, and then the current was going over the pipe, and there was a couple other anglers that were already there, and you waved to them, "Hey, how's it going?" Whatever. And then Micah decides at the last sec, he's like, "Okay, well, I'm ready to fish," and so he takes his line and he puts it out. Right as we reset, we have to, you get blown over, you turn, reset, blown over, reset. So it was like the second time we reset, and we already caught a couple fish. And Micah's like, "Oh, got one," and I was like, "Do you need any help?" Like, he's like, "No, I got it," and he just reeled this thing, and I just stood there like with a net for like, like, "All right, you can bring this thing in." He just took his sweet time bringing this thing in, and I was like, and then at some point I thought, okay, does he have it caught on something? And he brought this 22 and a half, or I think it's 23-inch sand bass up, this ginormous sand bass. And a couple of the anglers saw him bring it in, and I netted it. And they're like, "All right, you better make sure you didn't reel that in." I'm like, "No, at least he did it himself, Luke's off the bow, just trying to catch more, because he saw that Micah caught a fish. So he's like, "Okay, I got to catch another fish." And that ended up being the biggest bass.
Yeah.
And
pole and
he was so excited. He's like, "This is a lot of fun." And I'm like, "All right, man. Well, this is a big one." And then he ended up winning.
It was.
Yeah, he ended up winning. It was really a lot of fun.
That was when we were Shimano had us on their program, and they gave us, I think, 2 or 3 really nice setups,
really
Terramars
nice.
with nice reels. And
Yep.
I remember when Michael won that rod, he was just like, Yeah, and then how long did it take him before he never did use fish the rod? It was a trophy, right?
It was a trophy. Yeah. He was so excited. He's like, "This is such a beautiful reel. It's I'm afraid to fish it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I'll fish it for you." He's like, "No, it's
I
mine."
remember that was an
I'm like,
ongoing
"Okay."
joke for years. Have you used your rod yet? Nope.
So it's in our arsenal now.
Yeah. Now he gave it to Dad. All right.
No, I bought it off of him.
Oh, you bought it?
Yeah.
Had to bribe him with money.
I was like, all right, I'll
Quite a
give you.
businessman he is.
This is how much this cost. I'll pay it for it because I was like, because he earned it.
Yeah,
He really
and it was
did.
driving you nuts having him have a nicer rod
Every
than
night
you did.
we'd Sarah.
That
every
we don't
night,
use.
every night, Chad, Sarah prayers. I look up, see that pole just looking at me. I'm like, you know, it's like, sure could use that really beautiful pole right now.
That's
You know.
That's awesome. So cool.
And then obviously you and Luke went into the SBS series.
Yeah, so Chad was pushing us. He's like, hey, you guys are doing really good. Luke just finished 2 back-to-back Anglers of the Year for San Diego Anglers. Just going out and having fun fishing. Like,
Yeah.
it was no like craziness or whatever. And I remember,
But that's quite an accomplishment. That really is.
what? Yeah, but we were trying to be humble about it too. I don't
Yeah.
want to blow his head up. You know what I mean? Right? Because we were just literally having fun and fishing, and it was really really cool. He got a jacket, being Angler of the Year, and no, that was pretty
It
rad.
was really cool.
So Chad's like, hey, you probably should, if you want to take the next step, the Saltwater Bass Series is a great series. They're starting up a rookie family division. It would be beneficial for you and Luke to do this tournament. You're going to learn a lot and you're going to get better, if that's what your goal is. And I was like, okay, kind of like, put my foot in the sand a little bit about it. And that was 2018. Because I had that old chaparral, and I was thinking, this thing's going to break on me. I mean, I just was embarrassed to bring that thing out there. Not because it was a bad boat, just because I wasn't a mechanic, and I didn't know enough about that boat. You know, your first boat's one that you learn on, right?
Yeah.
May or may not have hit a buoy with it, like those things. May have smacked a dock with it once in a while. But
if you have a brand new boat, that would have sucked.
so we finally thought we're good enough to get a newer boat. So we got the Thresher boat, and then that was in the summer of 2018. And so he's like, you should probably try to right after the Hookup Bait tournament. So it's like, okay, we'll look into it. And then we decided so Luke and I would do this father and son thing. Because I was thinking, well, does Frank want a fishing partner? But I was thinking, no, it'd be better to do it with my son.
Oh,
and you were very encouraging. You're like, father-son's perfect. You should do it. You're going to get better. And I'll help you figure out tactics and stuff. But bottom line is, when you tournament fish, it changes you as an angler. You look at where you're fishing, how you're going to fish it. You have a plan. There's a time frame. And then you get to learn from other anglers, which is the part that I like the most. I'm like, wait a minute, I get to hang out with other professional fishermen. And I get to learn stuff. Yeah. That's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
So sure enough, first tournament is in San Diego Bay, Spotted Bay Bass Tournament. Well, guess where we have not spent a lot of time fishing? Because when we go out with our friends or whatever, we're going off to
the Point
the
Loma,
Point
and
Loma
La Jolla.
or all these structure, and we're just slaying fish because we're all about building memories. So they're like, oh, Spotted Bay Bass. I'm like, okay, I remember Spotted Bay Bass. I remember catching Spotted Bay
On the
Bass when I
rocks.
was first
Yeah.
learning, and then we ended up fishing this. We parked my boat. So the first SBS series, again, it was in January, I think. And we ended up parking near the Russian submarine back when the Russian submarine was there. And just smacking hookup baits up against that, because it was a structure, and my electronics showed that there were some fish there. We ended up catching one or two, I think 2 legals, and a whole lot of 13 and halves and 3/4.
They're
and
always
I
there.
couldn't flatten them out
The
much
ones
to
that just
make
tease
the-
you. Yeah.
And it looks like, oh, it's close enough. I'm like, dude, no way we're going to be one of those people that are going to bring in anything that's less than legal. So and then we show up and we weigh in, and everybody's got real close to 14s. I'm like, oh, maybe we should have, but we decided not to.
Yeah.
That's the right
Back
thing
when
to do.
it first started, it was like they just eyeballed them. If it looked legal, they didn't really bother to measure. I mean, it was close
But
enough. And
we learned
so
a
lot
lot.
of guys did that. It's brought that 13 and just hair shorts in and got away with it.
Well, that was then.
Yeah,
it was definitely not that way now. Yeah, I found that out the hard way. I'm like, oh, that now. So this is really close. Like, not only did you not make the mark, but we're going to delete some from you.
All of a sudden, they decided to enforce that one day, and it's screwed a lot of people.
Well, it went back to the original thing. Like, Luke, okay, hey, we're going to do the right thing even when nobody's looking. So we're always going to try to do our, and so that just kind of, that was a punch in the gut. So, but no, so we then the second tournament was Long Beach. And we've never fished Long Beach before. Yeah. And Chad's like, oh, you should pre-fish it. You should have a good idea. Like, he's all these recommendations, you know. You should. And I'm like, I open up my app, and I'm like, I have no idea where to go. And then he's a professional fisherman. I didn't want to be like, hey, Chad, help me. I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to turn him off to be like, dude, I do not want you to be part of this, you know. And I wasn't a part of the Hookup Bait teams at the time. It was just my first year. We were exclusively using Hookup Baits. We were ambassadors, but we were like, you know, it wasn't like we were still figuring things out, right? So we're there the morning of, finally left at 2:30 in the morning to get there on time, right? So I get there, and I'm super stressed out, and we have no idea where to go. And I kind of finally asked somebody, I think it was It
was me.
Was it you? Yeah, it was you. And you're like, well, most people are going to fish over here. Some people have got some place up north, and you just kind of pointed toward Isers.
Yeah, I said, just go to Isers.
And I was like, okay. And I'm trying to figure out how to go. He's like, well, there'll be boats heading there. Just follow them. And I'm like, thanks, Chad. And so sure enough, we went out there, and we were not the first ones there. And when we got there, everybody with a spot lock was all spot locked on structure. So we kind of worked our way around the structure, which actually ended up being to our advantage. So the people that were fishing right on top of the structure weren't getting the bigger fish. We were fishing in between the structures, right? Some of those kind of the sandy parts. And we caught it 5 just nice sized sand bass. And Luke brought in a 23-inch, 24-inch, I can't remember, 23. No, it was 23-inch. Big sand bass. And it was funny because trying to keep this thing alive was a whole nother part of tournament fishing that I was not aware of, right? You put it in a bait tank, and like this whole big thing is like, you know, sloshing around and knocking over the thing, and all the water goes out. And so there's this whole like part of tournament fishing that we never played with before. Oh, wow, we got to keep these fish alive because otherwise it's not going to count, right? So, man, we had a blast. We had so much fun. We were so much fun. And a matter of fact, it's one of my good memories of Frank. Frank was fishing with his other team partner, not Dale, was another guy. Richard, right. And they had this small red boat or something. Yep. And they were drifting, and they were going over this one spot, and they were hardcore fishing. And I remember Frank from San Diego Anglers, very friendly, he's very nice, he's very good to me and Luke. But he is very competitive. So I made the assumption that, since we caught all this fish, everybody else has caught all their fish. Well, that was not the case. So Mook and I drive up, and we're like, hey, Frank, how you doing? Like, we already caught all of ours, you know. We're like, we're all.
No.
And he looked at me, he's like, well, we haven't.
Like, we haven't, so get away.
And it turns out we were right in his drift line. Yeah, and I think he gave me the "you're too close" kind of look, and I was like, all right, I will leave. But because I just made the assumption that he was doing just as good as we were, so I was really excited about it.
You wanted to share.
I don't think Frank was ready for that. I don't know what was up, but he was not ready for that. I think he was happy for us, but I think he was like, okay, we're moving. Yeah,
you know? It's still, I think, in the tournament. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, and I think as I was talking to him, I think we hooked up again.
Oh gosh.
So, you know, sometimes, you know, timing's everything, right? So sometimes it's all hot and then it's cold. We were just in a hot streak. So we ended up winning that whole tournament.
I know. You guys won.
And we're like,
awesome.
wait a minute. Wait, we won this whole thing. Big bass and the first place. And we got to bring home this big fat check.
Yeah.
I mean, what did that feel like on the drive?
Wow.
We know how long people fish to get, you know, one of these checks. At your second tournament, you guys get one.
In a place we'd never fished before. And so I made sure Frank knew that a lot. I was like, hey, Frank, did you get a check yet? And he just doesn't think that's funny.
I don't think Frank still hasn't got a check.
But I don't do it to be me. I do it as a friendly banter back and forth because I think Frank's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
And I forget the fact he hasn't had one yet. So that was not That was not a. It
Frank,
was
I
not
hope
a
you're not
meant to
listening
be.
to the podcast.
Now Frank's gonna punch me in the face when he sees me next time. But I didn't mean it to be anything negative. I love the friendly banter back and forth. I think that's what makes us fun.
Well, we all
you know
do
what I mean?
Yeah, that makes that's what we do.
Yeah, but I tell you, so the SBS series, especially with Luke and I,
Hold that thought real quick. So, what did the family, your wife, think when you came home with the check, the win? I mean, now you've got to be the superhero at the house. Just real quick.
So I will tell you that we didn't drive home; we flew home.
Wow.
We were floating on the,
It floated right down the
we
405.
floated. I don't even remember getting home. We were floating home. Yeah,
And you walk in the door.
Oh God, we walked in the door, and Mike is like, "How'd it go?" And then we bring in this ginormous check, and I think Micah's face just went to the floor. He was just like, "You won the whole thing?" And Luke was like, "Look at this!" And we were so excited, and showing Stephanie and my wife the photos, and she was just like, "I'm so happy for you.
so
Good
wonderful.
job." And it was this big support, And then where are we going to put the check? Because we didn't know what to put the check, so of course we put it in Luke's room, right above his bed. He's got
Wow.
this huge check, And that was it was real positive encouragement. And then we tried to make sure that Luke didn't brag about it. We're like, okay, don't brag about it. We're gonna be like, you won one, but there's more to go, and we're having fun.
We gotta do
you know what I
that.
mean? Because you have to manage that, especially
Right,
as he was, I think 11 at the time. So you have to manage that too, because fishing is a lot of times you're locked on, or sometimes you're locked off, and you have to find out why and make those adjustments. Yeah. Well, we were hot right off the bat, so we had to figure out how to manage
being
that.
consistent is the hardest thing to do. In
Yeah.
fishing for sure.
Well, we were solidified at that point. We were like, this is amazing. And I remember him calling our name when he's like, "All right, and Ty and Luke." And we came up, and matter of fact, I think some of the Hookup Bait team members all came. They stayed, and
we're a team.
Yeah, and I just remember all you guys cheering us on.
Well,
and
that
it
was what got
really
you
cool.
You're on the team was that.
Well,
I remember that. I was like, wow, they won. That is cool. Their second tournament. And plus, it's just, you guys are just a fantastic. The definition of the people we want in our family is just very polite, very helping of others.
Boys are just
all
amazing.
That stuff. Yeah. So
they're good kids. Thanks to my wife. She's wonderful.
Both of you. Both of you.
so all that put together with winning, the rookie tournament at SBS, your second try. They're like, okay, they need to be on the team.
It was so fun. Well, I got to tell you, winning was awesome, but it wasn't like we didn't go into be like, we're gonna win. It was just winning was a byproduct. It was really something that was the icing on the cake. We really just went out there to build, one, to get better as an angler, two, to create some cool memories. And that's why
making memories.
It's true though,
right?
It's true. We did it just for this was a lot of fun.
You and your boy will remember that day for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I won't forget that. I was so incredibly proud. I didn't want to cry up there. I didn't want to get all emotional, But it wasn't like a cry emotional part, but it was such a and I'm sure Tom and Cash probably has some very similar feelings of just we came from not knowing much at all to executing and working together as a team, and it paying off. The paying off was just being there.
Yeah.
But to win it and to have this kind of like some of the big check and all that stuff, that was just so rad. Like it was a validation of working hard, but
But you did it together.
Yeah, but afterwards we get to talk to all these like professional fishermen. Like, yo, dude, what'd you do? Oh, well, I was over here at the wall, or I was doing this. I'm like, I never knew that you could do that. And how do you fish that way? Like, there's so many other ways to fish and to use this product that I've never used it before. So we were just like, okay, now we couldn't wait for the next tournament. We couldn't wait to do it again. We couldn't wait to fish because I let that drive out. You're like, okay, we're driving out. Everyone's driving out. We're all zero playing field. Now what do? We execute a game plan. How are we doing? I caught some fish. I wonder if somebody else caught the fish. Just don't ask Frank.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with you and your son and continue this podcast. So we'll be right back. Hi, this is Jojo with the Hookup Baits podcast, and now we are back with Ty and his son Luke. So welcome for joining us today. Luke, so we've had some great stories from your dad of you guys starting to fish. We're going to add to those today. So tell us what it was like to become a grom of Hookup Baits, and now you're an ambassador. How has that affected you and you sharing the love with Hookup Baits?
Well, originally when I became a grom, I was invited to go out fishing with you and Chad, which was a lot of fun because I got to ask to target the fish that I wanted to catch, that I could go out and catch them more, because you guys were giving me tips and tricks to catch them more. And it just helped me get the opportunity to really just understand more of what I was going to be doing. And that was actually a lot of fun.
Hey, anytime you catch fish is always fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then now you're an ambassador. And your dad was telling us the story of when you caught the big sand bass and brought home the big check. I mean, that is a huge accomplishment of the SBS series.
That was rad.
It
That
is.
was
fun.
rad.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm
For those
surprised your
80s
dad
peeps.
has not taken the check that's in your room and put it on top of his bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's quite an accomplishment.
Maybe the next one.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
next one.
absolutely. So we got a chance to know your dad. Tell us a little about what grade you're in, what hobbies you like. I know you're a great fisherman, but you also have some other hobbies as well. Well-rounded individual. So tell us about that.
So currently I'm a freshman. I'm a newly freshman at Calvin Christian. It's a Christian private school in Escondido. And hobbies I like to do, I like to play guitar. I am currently the lead guitarist and singer of a band called the American Standards.
Wow.
And
He's a good guitarist. He's really good. I mean, Metallica. He's like, I want to play Metallica, but for Jesus. He's like,
Wow.
I'm like,
Wow.
man, you are good.
It's a lot of
Go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
anyways,
Sorry.
hobbies. Well,
Luke's the star here. Okay, keep going.
I love, you already heard about guitar. I love to fish, obviously. And I just love hanging out with my friends, creating memories. Going
Well, I
to the beach.
remember we went, your mom and dad invited us to a play.
Yeah.
And it was the most amazing experience. Like, Luke, you were unbelievable.
Yeah, Frog and
Thank
Toad,
you.
remember?
Oh,
Yeah,
mean-
I remember that.
Musical theater.
was that the first play?
It was.
I mean,
I've
it was.
done
I mean, you
3 since
sang, you were on stage. I mean, you had no fright. I mean, this was amazing.
That was
Yeah.
cool. That was very cool. Yeah, I think he's going to continue it too. So next performance, we'll make sure you guys get there.
Wow, love it. So you play the guitar. What kind of guitar?
I play the electric guitar. I have a PRS Tremonti, and it's a lot of cool.
Yeah. And what's your favorite music to play?
I love to play rock and like metal, just sort of upbeat things that you can get stuck in your head and tap your foot to, just with a steady beat, but at the same time, just that's something that you enjoy listening to, you know?
And your band, do you have an upcoming date that you guys are going to be playing? Or
Yeah, me and my band have a gig at, well, it's on September 10th, and
Okay.
I'm pretty psyched about that.
Oh,
It's
Lime?
going to be really fun.
Is it Lime Fest?
Yeah, it's called Lime Fest, and yeah.
it's here in San Diego, right? The Lime Fest? And you guys are playing? Wow. Okay. You don't start at the bottom, then you just go right to the top.
Yeah.
Wow. So with your fishing, what has it taught you that you're now using in your other hobbies, or is it kind of commingled that these are just the values that mom and dad have instilled in you?
Well, I got to connect with my dad during that, but it also taught me like patience and stuff. And when I lose the fish that I've been going for a while, it allows me to, you know, breathe, calm down, and evaluate the situation when I can do better next time. And
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. Great values. But do you happen to have a favorite funny story of fishing with your dad? I mean,
I do.
is there one you can share with our listeners?
Well,
Well,
stories.
maybe not one. I'll give you a couple.
Okay, well, we can keep going if you got
So-
more than one. But give us our best first.
Okay, the best one.
Which one are you gonna say?
So
Oh, God,
Okay.
Dad's worried.
So one time I was fishing off the coast of La Jolla, okay? And me and my dad were fishing. It was a good day. We were catching a lot of fish. And we were talking smack, and we were listening to 80s rock, right?
Yes.
And this was on our old boat at 2018. Was it 2018?
Yep.
Yeah, 2018. And then, so I just hooked onto this giant fish out of nowhere, okay? And it was pulling drag, and I was freaking out, okay? Because I didn't catch a lot of those fish at that time. And and then and then my dad came over, and he was like helping me, but he set his pole down, not in a rod holder. He just set it down. And
On the
as
deck
he
of
was
the boat?
Yeah, behind the engine, he's fishing on the starboard angle, catching his fish, and I'm like, hey, do you need help? So I put my rod down, but my line was out.
He propped it up with his line
gosh.
still out.
Yeah.
And then as I was bringing mine in, his pole went off, and his pole just zipped straight into the water. He was like so confused of what was happening, and I was kind of freaking out because I knew that would be a big fish. And then, okay, so I started reeling again. I got a couple big more thumps, and then I finally brought it in. Little did I know that his pole flew straight into my pole, and so I brought up his pole.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
no.
But his
So-
fish was still on the pole, and same with mine.
Yeah.
So I
What?
started. So
Yeah, that's
caught.
true. It happened.
I caught my dad's pole, and then I started bringing in my dad's fish with his pole.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was weird.
Yeah,
it was,
so
cra-
he
it was
got
crazy.
2 fish and 2 poles.
Wow, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was, but it's funny how he says it like, oh, it's just real quick. This is what happened. But when it happened, we were like, oh my God,
It was crazy.
what's going on? My fish is in the water. I don't know what to do. And,
Right.
Well, let's concentrate on this. And looks like this fish is bigger. Oh, it just got bigger, and oh my God.
Starts fighting more, and you have no idea what to do.
Yeah, and we're still figuring things out. So I was like, oh, you got the bottom. Wait, no, you don't, and
You got
That was-
another one for us, Luke? Another funny one?
Okay.
I can tell.
Yeah. So I was fishing the SBS series with my dad, right? This was 2019, 2020, okay?
yeah, 2020.
We were fishing Long Beach, and it was a really choppy day. We were catching a couple fish, but we weren't at legals yet. And again, it was really choppy. My dad hooked onto a fish, or the bottom. I can't remember. And then probably the bottom.
Probably the bottom.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure everybody heard that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the
Probably
bottom.
the
It was the
bottom.
bottom. Okay. Anyways, he was leaning back,
Yeah.
and his line snapped. So he laid back and he hit his head on the tee.
Yeah.
On
By
that-
the
top,
boat, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then as he bent down, he was like walking back, and then he hit the side of our boat, and
gosh.
his legs buckled, and he flipped over and crashed straight into the water.
In the water?
Yep, right in the drink.
Yep, it was
Was that choppy?
yeah,
Was
it
that
was
side
it
chop?
was a big splash.
So you're on the boat by
A big
yourself?
splash. It was a big splash, JoJo. Huge. Oh
But
my, I was so
weren't you
upset.
panicking? Because now Luke's on the boat by himself.
Oh, I was laughing.
Yeah. So
It was really funny.
So okay, so I fall in the water, right? Thankfully, I didn't drop my pole in the water. Other people have done that.
Oh,
I
yes,
have not.
yes.
But anyway, yeah, that was not fun. So I hit my head, and then my legs buckled, and we had a chop, and I just went right over in the water. And we were the boat was the bow was facing. It was south, so I fell over on the eastern side. So I'm looking towards the shore, but the boat's pushing into me at the same time. But the engine was off,
Okay.
so I didn't,
Still
so I
pretty funny,
basically just, swam around the back of the boat. Luke's there. Dad, do you need help? As he's laughing at me. And then I was able to climb up back on the boat, but I didn't have a towel. I didn't have a change of clothes. I froze my butt off.
Shivering.
And then this guy here is like, hey, Dad, you cold? Yeah, I'm cold.
That was
It was fun. It was
that was
funny,
pretty
but
funny.
I was embarrassed. But it
payback
was-
time.
But now looking back, it was totally hilarious. And then and I run back and see the rest of the team. I said, well, it was time for weigh-ins, right? And I see Tom and Cash and Frank and Chad now, and they see me, and I'm like, I fell in. They're like, what? Like, this is what a great day it's been so far. It's a really tough series. Luke caught all the fish, and I fell in the water.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Wow.
It was a fun day. For me, at least.
Yeah. You know what, Jojo? I'm not the only one that's fallen in the water.
Oh, do tell.
I'm sorry. Luke, do you have a story?
I have fallen in the water so many times. It's not even funny.
Like so many times, not
Yeah,
just once.
Okay,
No,
so
multiple times.
more than once.
Multiple occasions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I got one for you.
Do you want to tell the
Yeah,
story?
sure. Why not? So our first boat, our old Chaparral, it has that lowered bow, right? That's that, we sit up there. It's got little pads and stuff. And when you get a good chop, that water will kind of come up over the bow. So it was a real sunny day. We had some friends on, and Luke is on the bow, and we're catching a lot of fish. And so Luke decides, well, it's warm out. I'm going to sit on the bow and put my feet in the water.
Oh no.
Because he's comfy.
It was very comfy.
He's very comfy. He
That's
catches
happened
a
multiple
fish.
times,
Oh,
yeah.
got a fish. And what happened after he caught the fish, Luke? What was
It was
what
definitely a big fish.
happened? Oh yeah, it was not just a fish.
And,
it was a big fish that pulled drag.
It was,
It's probably a yellow or white sea bass.
probably. And my drag wasn't very loose. So I pulled me in.
Yeah, in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because he didn't want to let go,
no.
and the drag wasn't set, so he yanked him in the water.
Yep. And I turned around, tried to get back on the boat. My dad was like freaking out, but I was like, no, Dad, my pole. And then, because like at that time, I let go of my pole, so I was like, Dad, my pole. So I yanked away from him. I dove down. I swam like 20 feet down at least. It was crazy. And then I couldn't find the pole.
And it was a good pole.
It was a very good pole.
It was like our good pole. You know, like you have good poles and bad poles.
It was
That
a nice
good pole.
pen pole. It was my favorite pole
Yeah,
to use.
it had all
At
the
that
nice
time.
rigs on it. You know, after Chad told us all the stuff to put on it.
I had a
and,
mint
yeah,
and
it went right in the
sardine.
drink. Somebody in La Jolla got a nice pole.
It was very
Wow.
nice.
But-
Wow.
That
You know,
pole
and I
can
tell him, I'm
brag
like,
his
hey, dude,
friends.
there's a fish down there. But like, I just yanked a pole out
Yeah.
of some dude's hand and pulled him in
Yanked
the
him off
water.
the boat. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
And I was like, get the pole! And then his friends too were like, he gets, oh, thank goodness you're safe. There's so many sharks in La Jolla, and trying to scare him. I'm like, all right, you guys, be quiet, And then I think, do I tell everybody about this? Like, was I a good safe boater by having my son on the bow getting yanked in the water? But now it's a funny story.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It was funny then too. But
Yeah.
And how has it been to not only fish with your dad, but also to have your friends on board and to know that you're comfortable fishing, you've won some series, you fish with the hookup baits. What's that feel like to fish with your friends on the boat?
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Over the past couple years, I brought a lot of my friends out. I've gotten them to fish, and I've gotten them hooked. For example, one of my friends, JT, I brought him out like 3 or 4 times. First couple, I got him hooked, and now he's always fishing at Lake
Yeah.
Power. And
He got the bug
Yeah.
from us. That was fun.
every single time.
And what's been your biggest fish caught on hookup baits?
my biggest fish caught on hookup baits? Ooh.
Oof.
Would it be the black sea bass or
That
the
was-
lingcod?
I mean,
Or the shark that neither of you caught?
no, yeah, thanks for saying that. Did you notice that? That neither of you caught,
Yeah.
just me, Dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got that.
No, I think the black sea bass still ranks. That was a good 50 pounds
Yeah.
at least.
I was 2017. We were on my old boat, and it was the first drop at this spot that Chad just told us about
yeah,
the day
Chad's
before.
like, go here, it's a honey hole. All right.
And we went there. I dropped it down, and first cast, I got just under. How big was it?
It was okay. So my hand, and it wouldn't even go. The gill plates was bigger than my hand.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
So
big.
It was.
What does that feel like? I mean, that's some serious pulling out on the rod there.
It was scary. At first, I thought it was a rock.
Standing on the edge, like I can't pull anymore. The pole's like bent down. He's like, but I'm not giving up. I'm like, all right, keep going. He's like,
It was my workout for the week.
Yeah.
It was
That's awesome.
it was big. It hurt my heart.
It was a really big fish, and we didn't know what it was. I never caught a black sea bass before.
We texted Chad about it.
Yeah, we took a photo of it. We brought it up on board, and it had these spots on it. It's this huge bass.
We
but
thought it
it's
was a
got spots
calico.
on it. I thought maybe it was a dirty, like a
He
old
was like,
one or something.
"This is a world record," and I was freaking out because I thought I was gonna be like super famous.
We texted Chad. Chad's like, "That's a black sea bass. You need to throw it back in the water." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." He's like, "Yeah, throw it back in the water." You're not allowed
Drop.
First of all, you're not allowed to take it out of the water. Secondly, you're not allowed to keep it. So throw it back in the water. Great catch. Throw it back in the water. Like he was very clear. so and when we
I think the lesson here is, that you thought to call Chad or to get a hold of him. You weren't sure what you caught
Right.
and what to do, and now you know the proper etiquette of when you catch this type of fish. What are the California rules? So I think that's a huge lesson that you've learned.
Yeah, it was a huge lesson. There was other lessons too, like, hey, it's not going down immediately. Should we keep it? Oh, no one's going to see. Dad, we should keep it. Wow, no, we can't keep it because it was really big.
It was really
It was
big.
really big. And I remember Chad's like, nope, you're not allowed to have it. It's a legal fish. You need to let it go.
And then-
So we're trying to, revive it on the side of the water. We're soaking wet, hanging off the
Oh,
side.
they're big. They
right. So we finally swims down, comes back up. We get it again. We're good. So finally it swims down. All right, we're good. So okay, right, do the right thing even when nobody's looking, right? So there's a principle
point.
here. Sure enough, we leave that area. We go toward the northern part of La Jolla, and sure enough, we get boarded by the Fish and Game. Remember that, Luke?
Yeah.
We
You offered
go,
him a water.
Hello. Yeah, I didn't know. I was like being nice. I'm like, hey guys, here's
It was
my
one of
license.
the flavored waters from Walmart too. It was really bad. I did not like them. It's like grape or something.
Don't give away those. So and so the Fish and Game guys were pretty cool. They're like, hey, what's going on? We're just here to check this and check your licenses. And I was like, no problem. I'm like, hey, so how's it been fishing? And we're like, oh, actually, it's been pretty good. We just caught a black sea bass. And he goes, well, what'd you do with it? I says, well, we released it. He goes, good answer. I was like, why would it have been bad? He goes, yeah, we could have taken your boat. It's good to know.
Happened
Yep.
a couple times.
Good to know. But that was a good lesson too. Both my boys were there, and
Well, now you know.
and we followed the rules, and it was good that we did because it would have been painful, So I'm glad Chad's helped us out a few times. There was one. There was another time we were in the bay. Do you remember the bay?
Mantis shrimp?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We were at the bait barge. Let me set the
Was
mood,
it the
okay?
bait barge?
It was the bait barge. We were on the little skiff. No. Was it? No, yeah.
We were the little skiff.
Yeah, we were
yeah,
on the bait
yeah.
barge, right?
No, we
It was
just
the
left
same
the
place?
bait barge. Yeah, but anyway, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Same area. Go ahead. Tell us.
Okay, anyways. Okay, so we okay. So I hooked on to this fish, right? And it was pulling, but it was kind of like, how like you hook on to some like kelp or something and you kind of have to drag it in. Anyways, I dragged it in and I thought it was a lobster. So we brought it up. I was like, "There's no way we just caught a lobster on a hookup bait." And then we were about to we were bragging to Chad about how just how many fish this could catch, and then but we were like, "This doesn't look very much like a lobster. What is this?" We did that a lot. It was on. I remember it was on an orange. It was.
Yeah, it was. You're right. Good memory.
Orange gold, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he texts back. He's like, "That's a mantis shrimp. Don't hold it." And of course, my dad's been holding it in his hand all
Oh,
day.
gosh.
Yeah, I didn't know any
And-
better. I'm stupid.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he was telling us.
It was
They're-
big. It was
they're
a big
painful.
shrimp.
It was like this big.
It was huge.
And
Oh.
then Chad was like, one time I put it up. I was with Jojo, and one time I put it up against the glass, and it cracked the glass.
It did.
Yeah.
I remember that. He's like, "Oh, wonder how powerful they are." And he, literally put it, and it just, pow.
I guess they
Smash.
do this or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like flick it, kick
Yeah.
it.
I mean, they can really hurt you.
Yeah, well, that's what Chad said.
So that's why he was holding it with his hands.
I didn't
And then
know
once
any
he
better.
read the text, he threw it, and it killed our. Okay, so we had a 15-inch spotty. Killed the spotty.
Yeah, we had it was the biggest spotty we ever caught, right? It was 2018, and we were like, oh my god, we gotta have this so we didn't, this is when you're first fishing and you're like, you caught a legal fish, you can take it home and eat it. And it was that kind of thing. So we had this 15-inch spotty that we caught. And we put the mantis shrimp in with the spotty, not knowing. We were just trying to keep them alive to figure out what it was. And then...
It killed the fish?
Yeah, it just jacked the spotty up.
Oh, it was so
we were
bad.
like, well, I guess we're keeping the spotty because we didn't know any better, I mean,
Really?
we don't keep any bass anymore, just for everyone's knowledge. We know better.
keep
But
some.
It killed the fish.
We gotta have dinner.
well, you know what I mean. Especially not spotties. But go ahead.
Wow.
Yeah, it just killed the spotty. Either the spotted bay bass was so afraid that it just decided to go upside down, or it literally did the smackathon and a little WWE action.
Smack.
Because it's like,
Oh, I know. They're
Exactly like that, Dad.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we there was like what's that bay thing we go to the tackle show? What's the one down here?
Day at the dock?
Day at Docks. Yeah, so we did at Docks, and there's this fish and game booth, whatever, and we go over and we tell the fish and game this story, and this lady looked at me, she goes, "That's not truthful." I'm sorry. What? She goes, "Yeah, there's no mantis shrimp in here." And I said, did you want me to show you a photo? Because here's the photo. And she's like, "Yeah, that didn't happen here." I was like, "Okay." And Luke's like, "Do we have this conversation?" So I was like, "Okay, let's just go.
really?
Yeah, she was not. She did not want to have a conversation about it. So
Wow.
I don't know why,
Because mantis shrimp suck.
because it happened, But yeah, oh my God, yeah, we did. I threw it overboard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You threw,
As soon as
threw it.
as soon as Chad said, "Look, it'll break your wrist.
Yes.
Like it'll really hurt you, and you're with your boys. Throw it back." And I imagine Chad's like sitting in his couch just laughing, like, "All right, I got a text from Luke for Ty. What is this? Yeah.
So you also have Micah who fishes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a competition among the household? Or?
We love to talk smack, and when we do hookup bait tournaments, I remember one time we were fishing, and me and Micah switched poles because he took a snack break. And
It's very important to
we
the
all
Wiese
need our
household.
snack breaks, okay?
Like to-
In
you
the
like
Wiese
to eat our
household,
snacks.
We need our
Yes.
snacks, okay? So anyways, he was on a snack break, and his pole was still out. But I was like kind of jigging it, and then I grabbed it, and then I caught a fish on it, and then I reeled in the fish, and then my pole went off, and little did I know that fish was just slightly bigger than this
Oh,
fish,
no.
and that one got him the win,
And
and I got second place
that.
with a broken arm. Though.
Yeah, so that pole was in. Micah opened a bail and put that one out for
Right.
that one. I remember that one.
Right.
Yeah, because we just reset and came around. But
Well, we're going
Yeah.
to
But I mean, if you
we're
bring
gonna
it
take a
up.
quick break real quick. We'll be right back with Ty and Luke from our podcast. Hi, this is Jojo with the Hookup Baits podcast, and we are back with Ty and Luke. So we were talking about a little competition in the household with you and your brother and dad. Does that occur on the boat or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. We
I'm sorry, are you fishing? Because I'm
Yeah,
catching over
we
here.
get,
May have heard that.
We
more than
love to
once.
talk smack. It's a necessity when we're fishing, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we play classical rock music while
that's
we
true.
fish.
Like
Wow.
80s rock, like Def Leppard, Metallica,
Yeah,
and then
all of them.
Tom Petty here.
Why
and
not?
there.
Yeah.
And what would you say, Luke, has been the greatest lesson you've learned in fishing with your dad?
The greatest lesson?
The greatest lesson.
The greatest lesson would probably be patience. And not only, like, I'm not talking about, like, the stereotypical patience, like, wait, you'll get it by. It's more like, I can get this next time because if I put through the work, then it's going to come out the way
And Dad,
Don't make me cry.
what has been your biggest memory or lesson fishing with the boys?
God, there's so many. You know what? One of my fondest memories is driving around picking up balloons out of the water and knowing we have to take care of the environment that we're fishing in. I always kind of thought that was cool.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and sometimes that we'll be driving out and we'll see a pod of dolphins and we'll just stop right in the middle of the pod and take a second and recognize how blessed we are to have a boat, to work hard, to be in this position. So those are some of my real fondest memories. And then when we go out and we say, hey, we want to go catch this, and then we go out and do it, it's always so fun to come back and be like, we did that.
Right.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I remember one time when I caught the yellowtail, 2017.
I remember
And,
that. Yeah.
When we caught the yellowtail.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was 2018.
2018. Sorry, blended together.
That was a
No,
good
it
one.
was 2017.
No, it was 2018.
It was
We had a
2017 'cause the
chaparral.
shark was
Okay,
18.
Got it. Moving on.
It was right
Moving
before
on.
we got the treasure.
Moving
Okay. Anyways, we brought it home and then
The
all of
shark or
Maddie's
the
friends
yellow?
No,
were-
yellowtail.
Sorry.
Not
Yellowtail.
we let
Okay,
shark go.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So we had this huge yellowtail. Go ahead, and we bring it home.
Okay, and we bring it home, and all of my older sister's friends are over, and they were all taking selfies with the fish, and Maddie was freaking out because she doesn't like fish very much.
Yeah.
And
Like, look, every girls, look at the big fish we have. Oh my God, it's so big. Yeah, that was a good memory though,
Salty.
and we thought we were super awesome too.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
it was a good moment.
it was a good moment.
Yeah.
It was a super like
Ego boost.
Yeah.
Alpha male.
Well, 'cause
Alpha
we were
male.
like-
Sigma.
well, that was the time when we start to check off different species we haven't caught yet.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, spotties, boom, calicos. Remember that when we first finally caught a calico, we're like, all right, we got a calico.
I was so psyched.
You know
It
what I
was the
mean?
best
And
thing ever. It
and
was
so
the
we were
best
just
thing.
going off a species list, right? Okay, we haven't caught a barracuda yet. How do we catch a barracuda? Boom. Then when we caught a barracuda, that was super exciting.
That's my favorite
Same
fish
thing
to
with
eat.
bonito, and then lingcod. That was a huge celebration. You remember that?
It was
when that was
insane.
right during
The
they shut
teeth
down
were
the
like-
rock cod area. So he finally caught this big lingcod, and we had to throw it back.
It
He
was
like,
February.
No, please don't.
Worst thing.
Gotta throw it back, Luke. But okay.
I don't want to talk about it. It's still a sensitive subject.
So that was the time we were checking off species, right? And yellowtail happened to be on one of those. And so when we caught it, we just thought we were on top of the world. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Luke caught that one. Yeah. He caught it all by himself too. So I kept trying,
was
but
big. It was big.
he's the one that
11-year-old
succeeded. So, yep. All the big fish have been caught by you.
Well, not all of them. You caught one or two yellowtail.
Yeah, it's true. I
One
have
or
the big.
two.
I had the biggest bun.
It's okay. It's
had
okay.
the
You'll
biggest
get there
barracuda.
someday. You'll get there someday.
Fine.
That's true.
I do.
Favorite hookup baits that you like to use? What are your go-to?
My favorite is mint and sexy sardine.
Good.
Sexy sardine.
How about Dad?
I'm like Tom Troop over there. I love the red crab. That red crab is my baby.
Your
Love me
baby.
some red crab. I'm like, I'm sorry, do you want to catch fish today? I'm putting on red crab. Yeah, because it doesn't matter if it's super sunny out or if it's cloudy out. Red crab is hitting some time of the day. But sometimes I don't want to always use red crab because then, hookup baits like everyone goes out, gets red crab, then you can't find red crab anywhere.
That's true. That's true.
True.
One of my
That's happened once or twice.
Do you remember our secret colors? Like we would like use orange. We would use orange. And like no one's catching fish off of orange, but we were. Yeah. So we were like, okay, do we tell people we caught this on an orange? You know what I mean? Like some of those colors that a lot of
kinda
other people
silent
don't yell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
how the purple is.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we first started getting purple, we weren't catching anything off of purple. And then I asked Chad, why are we catching purple? And then he kind of said, well, you're not fishing the right areas with purple. And then once we started fishing the right areas with purple, then we couldn't stop catching fish off of purple. So now I ran out of purple.
You caught a big calico on that. I think it was like a 25-inch calico.
I don't know if it's that big, but
It was
big.
huge.
Yeah. I and it sucks too because when you catch a big calico like that, you want to take it home and eat it. And then we're like,
I want to take it
have
home
a
and eat
good
it.
day. You
I
know,
love
catch you.
eating.
Our thing is catch you later.
Yeah.
This guy.
That was my thing.
That was Luke's, yeah. So every time we release a fish,
I
we
wrote
say
it on
catch you
the pole.
later. And I don't know.
He's so cheesy.
We thought it was funny. It's cheesy, yeah. And
It's so bad. I thought it was so clever.
Yeah.
I was 10.
But
I thought
that
it was so
cool.
funny.
You know, if you go fishing with us on our boat, we're always playing rock and roll music. It's a classic rock and roll, and we're singing all the time.
Yeah.
So
No,
we're
he's
singing.
Singing is authorized.
That's right. I do say that.
It's so bad.
I say that. Hey, I got a little bit of the weird dad thing going on, but it's fun.
Every single time you have to embarrass every one of my friends. Okay, for example, I brought one of my friends out. His name is Matthew, okay? And immediately he hooks on to, like, literally first cast out of any of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he catches a white sea bass. Yep. And me and my dad are freaking out because we haven't caught one yet.
The elusive gray ghost.
Yeah, and he just does it without, like, hesitation.
Wow.
Not even
Or
trying.
anything.
Oh, am I supposed to do this now? Opens up the bail. Boop. Oh, here's our
Boom. Right
sea
off
bass.
the coast of Point Loma. And
Wow.
Serious.
It's crazy.
Right now.
Wow.
And then his dad kept out fishing us too.
Yeah, sometimes we get embarrassed. We bring all these kids out and they outfish us.
Oh my gosh. The
Like, you guys are great. You guys get us to catch all these fish. We're like, we're trying too.
Well, it's
right
because you're
now.
busy helping them.
Incorrect.
That's why.
exactly what's
You
happening.
know, you're busy. You're making sure the rods have the right baits, etc. So
Absolutely,
you're
yeah.
not able to fish as much.
I'm making
as
sure
you-
the radio station's in the right spot.
Yeah, that's it. That's definitely it.
Snacks are on
That's it.
point.
Oh,
you know?
I'm all about that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We go fishing with Chad. He's like, business. I'm like, all right, there's business and then there's party time.
And then there's
And you
making-
actually most recently had a chance to go out with Chad, just the two of you.
Yeah,
To
Chad's
really
like-
understand the boat and positioning. How was that?
So Chad's like, hey, so we're going fishing next week. And I'm like, all right, I guess we're doing that.
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, I know you were gone. And on your boat. So he's like, okay, so we're gonna go fishing on your boat. Let's dial this in because the last SBS series we were off a little bit. He's like, I just kind of see. I want to know how you manage drift and where the fish are and everything. So sure enough, we went out there. We caught a bunch of fish. Chad catches the bigger fish all the time. I don't know how he does it. Unless the fish the same stuff he is, and he'll still catch the biggest one. But as Wayne would say, he's the whisperer.
Mm-hmm.
But so he's like, I'm like, hey, do you want, where you want to go? He's like, no, you tell me where you're going. I was like, all right. So we went off to Point Loma, and he's like, okay, we're gonna fish this structure, and then it was interesting. He and I had a little kind of some tweak and peaks about how to manage current, and you know what I mean, and where the fish presentation, and I kind of think I was pretty close. So there wasn't a lot of tweaking, which I thought was fun. It made me feel kind of good.
That's right.
So we talked a little bit like that, and we talked some of boat stuff or whatever. But I really liked the one-on-one with him because he was able to talk a little bit of some tournament fishing advice,
Techniques and
just some stuff that he was able to share with Tom too, because Tom and Cash have had some time to fish with him more often, and I was trying to be a sponge, so I was, and then there was a time where we just weren't talking. Because we were just fishing and catching the whole time. So I would catch one,
you had
he'd
the
catch
tunes
two.
on.
I would catch two, then he'd catch three. Then I'd be like, oh my God, I caught three, he caught four. I'm like, good Lord, the guy is just nonstop. And he does it so effortlessly. But it was fun to have him on my boat. One of the reasons why I was always worried about bringing a professional fisherman on board my boat because I was always worried that maybe my boat wasn't good enough or...
You have a great boat.
Are you insecure about your boat
I was
size?
a little insecure about my boat size. Yeah. So my son is see the banter back and forth? So having fun, you should see how much fun we have fishing because
my
that's what
gosh.
we do. Like, I'll be off the bow, I'll catch one. I'm like, oh, Luke, you fishing over there? Because I'm catching. And sure enough, he'll catch 2, 3 more, and then he'll go right back on me. Hey, Dad, oh, you cold back there? Because I'm hot over here. I'm
That's
catching
awesome.
fish. So that's that to me is a win. And then when he brings his friends on there, we're continuing to banter, and they don't know what to do with it.
It's really funny because they're just like, what is happening right now?
Your dad said this.
I
Am
have
I allowed to be
explain it
mad?
to them later. You drop your phone in the water. He's done
Oh!
that. He's on his 6th phone.
Mate.
Who
He's done
is?
it. He's
Yeah.
done it 6 times at Lake
Yeah.
Poway twice. On our boat, he's bending down and it slips out of his hoodie pocket.
Yeah.
So we have this group chat, okay? And before it was called the family group chat, it was like, we just now changed it. It was called Dad's fourth phone or Dad's fifth phone or Dad's sixth phone. I am not joking.
Yeah, I may or may have lost a few phones to.
And you have the
Davy
plan
Jones
that you
locker.
can replace them, right?
What's
With every year.
You have the plan you can replace the phone?
No.
No, ma'am, I do not.
Oh.
And the
Ouch.
last phone I
Ouch.
dropped in the water was a
The look of
military phone.
defeat. Yeah, it wasn't even his.
There was some colorful language that day. I made sure that I debriefed all the
I
young
was
men
with
that
my
are on
friend.
board.
Oh, no.
I brought my
I
friend.
debriefed all the men on the boat. I'm like, okay, so the words you have heard here are not authorized to be said anywhere else.
And Griffin's like, oh, it's fine.
Oh, it was a fun day. We caught lots of fish, and I lost my phone to Davy Jones' locker. So,
Oh,
yeah, good times.
wow.
Good times. So I do fall in the water, as we all heard.
And I'm sorry, what position did you have in the military?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
So I was a commander.
He was a commander.
Yeah. I
I'll
was
tell you
willing to
later.
pay for the phone, but they were like, okay, you've had it for a few years, so we're not going to take away your birthday. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. But it's not about my phone.
No.
It's about the good times we have on
About
the
the
boat.
memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, about memories. And we wouldn't have done it without the hookup baits. So every time we go out, we bring these boys out and they catch fish
And friends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so we get to wear the gear too, like
that's right.
we'll be wearing a hookup bait, hoodie or sweatshirt and stuff like that, or hats and.
I'll show my friends and they'll be like, how did you get that? And I'm like,
Hello. Yeah.
Well, you got to catch fish first, baby.
Yeah, it's all about who you are and the fish that you catch, and also how you've been so great at sharing the love. I mean, bring your friends on board and being able to show them how to fish the hookup baits. Luke, I mean, that's huge, and that's a big part of being an ambassador. So we thank you for that.
You know, I gotta tell a little story about Luke. So, as you know, we bring friends on to fish, right? Fishing on the Wiese boat, the Thresher, because I have not named it yet, so still Thresher too.
TIE Fighter.
Yeah, TIE Fighter. I like that.
Oh, I like that.
So Luke is so I'm the captain of the boat. So Luke's my first mate. So so I introduce everybody. Hello. See, he's just like me. He walks into things. Good job, buddy. At least he's not falling in the water. So I'll go on the boat. I'll be like, okay, so these are the rules. This is the safety. Make sure everything's good to go. And Luke is my first mate. And so if anything happens, Luke is the second in charge of the boat. We always kind of set this up. And so when it comes time to tying up the baits or whatever, Luke gets to tell him about how to actually fish the hookup baits. And so because, it's his friends, right? And so it's so interesting to hear him tell them, hey, you don't have to do anything fancy. The bait does the work for you. You just open the bail and you pitch it, and then the bait just kind of does this. And I could see he's telling it just kind of, glides on the way down. It acts like an injured bait fish. And he goes, but you have to pay attention because most of the time the fish hit on the way down.
80%.
Don't blink on the sink.
Yeah, what'd you say? 80%?
80% of the time it hits on the way down.
And I just sit back and I watch him. I'm like, oh, look at him go. He's teaching these kids how to fish. And they're like, oh, it can't be that easy. He's like, oh, no, look. And then he'll go and then he'll show them, all right, follow me, do what I do. And he'll drop it over. And 9 times out of 10, his first drop in front of his friends, he'll hook up on a fish.
In front of your friends.
You may have done that. Yeah. He has done that in front of my friends as well. I'll take my son out and take some of the old fishermen out that don't have a lot of experience with hookup baits, and they're kind of skeptical.
Bring shrimp.
Yeah, they bring shrimp because they're like,
whatever
well,
it's
the sheepshead like shrimp. I'm like, well, they like hookup baits too. No, they don't. Well, they do. And then so Luke will show him how to fish it, which I really enjoy. And then Luke will catch a fish right in front of him. And then it's gangbusters. Then I'll be like, hey, are you fishing? Would you like me to hand the pole to you? They're like, no. So you can reel in your fish. We've done that a few times.
Well, a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap this up.
Sorry.
No, we can keep going.
Are you fishing? I'm sorry. Are you fishing?
Are you recording?
Where do you see hookup baits in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, you've been a part of this from almost the beginning.
Do you want to take this?
Do you want to?
You can take
I'd love I'd love to hear both of your perspectives.
Where do I see hookup baits in the next couple of years? Mm-hmm. I see. I can envision, to be truthful, I can envision hookup baits becoming an international word. I feel like the organization has a solid product. I feel like there's a significant push behind hookup baits. There's a loyal group that fishes hookup baits, and I feel like that is positive momentum, and I can see it becoming an international lure, because it really is the best lure in the business. And that's just
Thank you.
that's just my personal 2 cents. Luke, over to you, son.
It's not only because like it's a great product, it's also because like there's good intentions behind it. It's not only to like make money, it's to actually like help people fish, and to help create memories.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you.
Oh, so quiet. Like, yeah, you guys do all cool stuff with kids, and you sponsor kids stuff.
And that was a big
Definitely
part.
more Groms.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Groms are super
The future
supportive.
of hookup baits.
That's it.
That's absolutely right.
And the Warriors, you have a lot of the veterans. You do sponsor a lot of those trips, and it's just all, you're pushing out good. You're building positive relations, and fishing is a lot of a brotherhood, sisterhood. It's a community, right? So if you are a community that tries to do right and do good things by building relationships and building up memories, you're going to be successful. And that's one of the reasons why I really believe in the product.
Well, and
Yeah.
both of you have been so instrumental in that. So thank you both very much for that. We're going to end on Luke. You play the guitar. You are in theater. You're a great fisherman, great son. What do you want to do when you grow up?
Ooh, I definitely want to keep fishing as a hobby, but I really want to continue making music. It's something I really enjoy, and I love playing. I play guitar. I play bass. I play drums. And it's just a lot of fun making music, so I want to continue doing that.
Perfect. Well, we will wrap that up. Thank you again, both, for coming to our podcast. And couldn't have done this without you guys.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.